All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into the world of animal feed operators. We've got all kinds of goodies from RoleCatcher to help get you prepped for that big interview. You know, career guides, sample interview questions, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's really a cool field, blending that technical know-how with that passion for animal welfare.
Totally. And speaking of passion, one of the first questions they might throw at you is, what experience do you have working with animal feed?
Hmm.
Now, what if you're fresh out of school, or maybe making a career switch?
Yeah, that's where those transferable skills really come into play. Think about it anytime you've had to follow some super specific instructions, maybe like in a lab setting, or even if you think back to baking at home, that attention to detail that's so crucial in feed production.
Oh, that's a good point.
Mm.
The career guide actually mentions how important quality control is in this role,
Right.
with all the regulations and safety standards and all that.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of leads us perfectly into another question they love to ask. What measures do you take to ensure the quality of animal feed? Hey, this is your chance to really shine.
So we don't want to just say, I'm careful, right? We need to get a little bit more specific.
Exactly. Think back to a time when you had to double check your work. Maybe you even caught a mistake before it turned into a major problem. Walk them through that whole process.
Like that time I accidentally put salt instead of sugar in those cookies. Not my
Yeah.
finest moment, but hey, taught me to pay attention.
That's perfect. Owning those mistakes and showing what you learned from them. Huge plus.
Okay, so get ready for this one. How do you handle emergencies or like those unexpected situations when you're working with animal feed?
Mm.
I mean, things can get a little crazy in this line of work, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's all about staying calm, keeping a cool head, and thinking on your feet.
So they're really looking for that problem-solving mindset.
Yeah, they want to know that you can size up a situation, take the right action, and maybe most importantly, communicate effectively with your team.
This is where I think RoleCatcher's AI can really be a game changer. You can actually practice these tricky questions, get some personalized feedback. It's almost like you're doing a mock interview with an expert,
Yeah,
you know?
totally. Preparation is key and being able to really articulate your process.
Get ready for a tough one. What is your understanding of animal nutrition and how it relates to animal feed? This one makes me want to crack open a science textbook.
Well, you don't have to go that far. It's more about showing them you grasp the fundamentals, you get that different animals have different dietary needs, and the feed you're producing that's directly impacting their health, their growth.
The career guide actually breaks down the different types of feed and the nutrients they provide. Did you know some feeds are specifically made to help animals gain weight,
Mm.
while others are for like lean muscle growth? It's pretty fascinating stuff.
It really is, and it all ties back to how important precision and accuracy are. Even a tiny change in the feed formula can have a huge effect on the animals.
Now, how about staying ahead of the game? Here's a question to see how committed you are to learning. How do you stay up to date with current trends and developments in animal feed and nutrition?
This is where you show you're a lifelong learner, always curious and hungry for knowledge.
It's not just about, reading every article out there. It's about showing them you're really engaged in the industry.
Exactly, mentioning, publications, websites, conferences, even podcasts. All that shows you're genuinely interested. You could even bring up some specific technologies you've been reading about, like using sensors in feed production or personalized animal diets.
Yeah, and that's where those RoleCatcher career guides are so helpful. They give you a really solid overview of the industry, like the key players and the trends, things that'll really make you stand out in an interview.
Speaking of standing out, let's talk about a question focused on safety and hygiene.
hmm
How do you ensure that animal feed is stored and distributed in a safe and hygienic manner?
Oh boy, here come the acronyms, GMPs, HACCP.
Hmm.
I always get those two mixed up.
No worries, it happens. So GMP stands for Good Manufacturing Practices, basically guidelines for making sure everything's top-notch in production. And then there's HACCP, hazard analysis and critical control points. That's a whole system for finding and controlling potential hazards in the feed production.
So it's not just about, keeping things clean and organized. It's about having a system to prevent problems and make sure the feed is safe for the animals.
Exactly. And you can really impress them by explaining how you'd use these principles in real life, like maybe mention inspecting storage areas for pests or making sure there's good ventilation. Or how about meticulously cleaning the equipment between batches?
That kind of detail shows you're not just throwing around fancy words. You really understand how important they are and how to actually put them into practice. Kind of like the difference between reading a recipe and actually baking the cake.
Perfect analogy. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the process as a whole. Can you explain the process of formulating animal feed?
This one sounds a little intimidating, especially if you've never actually worked in a feed mill.
I get it, but the trick is to break it down into smaller steps. Start by talking about the ingredients, grains, protein sources, vitamins, minerals, all that, and how they're chosen and blended to meet the needs of different animals.
That's where that career guide comes in clutch again. It's got a whole section on the different types of feed and what they're made of.
Yep, and you can even go a step further and talk about the equipment, like mixing machines, grinders, pellet mills, paint a picture for them.
Speaking of pictures, I always think of those giant mixing machines like something out of Willy Wonka.
Uh-huh. I can see that. All right, let's move on to a question that really tests your organizational skills. How do you ensure that animal feed is delivered on time and in the correct quantities?
This is all about logistics, right?
Uh-huh.
Getting the right feed to the right place at the right time.
Exactly. And it's not just about delivery, it's also about inventory. So how do you manage all that and make sure there's always enough feed on hand? It's a two-parter emphasizing how important it is to track stock levels and anticipate demand.
It's like a giant puzzle, making sure all the pieces fit just right.
You got it. And this is a great opportunity to highlight any experience you have, like with inventory, software, spreadsheets, even just good old-fashioned organizational skills.
And don't forget about communication. You've got to be talking to suppliers, transportation companies, the farms receiving the feed to make sure everything's running smoothly.
Absolutely. Good communication is essential in this role. Okay, now for a question that really puts those problem-solving skills on display. Can you describe a time when you had to troubleshoot a problem with animal feed and how you resolved it?
Classic, tell me about a time when question. Definitely want to have a good example ready for this one.
For sure, but it doesn't have to be a feed-specific problem. It could be any situation where you had to identify an issue, figure out the cause, and find a solution.
Yeah, like maybe a piece of equipment went haywire, or you spotted a problem with the inventory, or maybe even a time you had to tweak a recipe because you were missing an ingredient.
Exactly. The key is to highlight, your analytical thinking, your ability to stay calm under pressure, that proactive approach to finding solutions. And don't forget, RoleCatcher's AI can help you practice these kinds of questions, and you can even get feedback on your answers.
It's like having a virtual coach in your back pocket, making sure you're hitting all the right notes.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from, experience and qualifications to safety procedures and problem solving. But before we wrap up, I really want to emphasize how important it is to showcase your passion.
Right, because it's not just about checking off boxes on a job description. It's about finding a role where you can really contribute and make a difference.
And the animal feed industry, it's packed with opportunities for growth and innovation. Remember that career guide we talked about earlier? It highlights how much technology is changing things in this field.
Wow.
Automation, robotics, precision feeding, data analysis, you name it.
So as you're getting ready for that interview, think about how your skills and interests line up with all these exciting trends. Maybe you have a knack for working with machinery, or you're fascinated by animal nutrition, or maybe you're all about sustainability and making the industry more efficient.
Whatever it is, let that enthusiasm shine through in your interview.
Companies aren't just looking for someone who can do the job. They want someone who is excited about the work and ready to grow with the industry.
And with all the insights and tools that RoleCatcher provides, you'll be ready to showcase your skills, your passion, and land that dream job.
So go out there and ace that interview. And remember, we're rooting for you.
Oh, and hey, let us know how it goes.